And look at this. Now you have a full control of your particles just by using fields.
Hey everyone, welcome to this video. Today we're going to do Xparticles in Redshift, and I'm going to show you basic Xparticle texturing and then also group level texturing and then custom object texturing and how you can control Xparticles with fields, which is the most interesting. We're going to be using xpChangegroup, and we're going to use two xpChangegroup self-opposing and then using field. Now maybe you remember I tried to do the recreation of the artwork Reuko Artifact Rage, and I kind of failed at it because I didn't have enough knowledge of how to art direct the Xparticles. And in this video, we're going to go over how to art direct the movement of particles and how to slow them down, do all these kind of things that will help us to create kind of more organic, swarmy looking particles. So let's get into it and
Hey guys, so let's have a look how to control Xparticles and texture them with Redshift, have a real control about art direction and movement of our particles, as well as the materials and how quickly change from one to another. And I'm going to show you a couple techniques. We're going to start with basic creation of this Xparticle system, and I'm going to play this just so we can see this. So I'm just going to press play. Now, when you want to texture Xparticles, most of you will know that you just put the Redshift tag on it. So you put the render tag, Redshift object, and you put the optimized sphere. So before I do that, I'm just going to press play on my APR. It's nothing visible, but as soon as I put Redshift object on Emitter, I can put the optimized spheres, for example, it will start rendering in Redshift. And now if you want to change this to something, then you just create the Redshift material, and let's see, we're gonna make this nice orange or yellow, orange, whatever. And if I'm gonna press play, now I have beautiful orange material. This is very simple technique, but what if I want more materials and objects in that? There's a simple thing that you can just create groups, and you can create group, and then you can just create another. You can just go group, create group, and you have two groups. And you can assign the material to the group 1, then copy this over on a group 2, open this material, copy it over, and change it to something opposite. So just kind of, let's do blue. And so we have this blue material applied to group 2, just so we can see that clearly. I'm just going to change it to the respective colors. The group 1, I'm going to change it to that yellow. So if I press play again, I'm going to get nothing. And the reason for that is that the emitter doesn't know that you want to use these groups. So you need to drag those in. Just gonna press play now. The emitter can see those and you can emit those. So if I would delete those, it's much easier for you to just go to emitter and create an add group from here, because those will get automatically assigned, and then you can just change their colors, right? So you have blue. Again, they not rendered with Redshift because you need that Redshift render tag. So you put a Redshift object on your groups and assign both of these to optimized spheres. And now you have two groups, two materials, and you can put the Redshift. So if I put a blue one on second group, now you have Redshift materials on two groups coming out of one emitter. But what if I wanted to do even better, and I want to really have, because I've seen many particle tutorials with just spheres. And what if I want my own custom objects? I want to kind of have a dusty shards and stuff like that. It's really simple to do that. You can just create sphere, the cube. You bring in xpShutter. I'm just going to press Alt and it get applied immediately to my cube. So if I click on xpShutter, I can go to explode and explode these into shards. I can select a couple of those, press C on my xpShutter, so I will get all these shards separately as a mesh. And now I'm just gonna go and select a couple of these, just like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just trying to pick some simple ones. And so I have this 4. I'm gonna go here, they are highlighted here. I'm just gonna drag them out of that group, right, and delete that xpShutter. So I have 4 shards. Now I'm just gonna name them, shard G1, G1, G2, G2. So I'm gonna put these together into null. So press Alt G and put them in a group, call it shards. And now it's clean. We can drag that into utilities folder as well, just so it's clearly within our XP system. And I can also go to that null and hide it from our viewport. So I have a clear viewport, and we're going to get rid of them from here as well. But first we need to go to our groups and go here into our Redshift object tag and change it to custom object. And now I can drag from my now just shard G1, highlight the Redshift tag on particle group 1 and drag those G1s here. Now I have crazy scale, but I'm just going to go 0.02 and just going to make them smaller. And see, those two already disappeared because they are being utilized by custom object. Same, do for the other one and just drag those here, highlight the, Redshift object, drag those G2s into, I need to change it to custom object, and then drag those G2s in there. Again, same the scale, just I'm going to change it to 0.02. And now instead of spheres, I have this shard, so which is much more natural looking, but you see they kind of all pointed same way. So if I'm just gonna kind of do it again, they kind of pointing the same way. And again, something happened there. We lost the materials on them. So again, as we went one level further, we lost that functionality that was before. We need to again rethink our approach. So what we're gonna do, we gonna go into these shards and we apply the material straight to those. So if it's our group 1 is yellow, so I'm just gonna take that yellow material and just take it straight there. Right now I have the yellow material popping on, and then G2 is blue, and just copy that over, and now I have respective materials again. So whenever you using custom objects, it doesn't work on groups anymore. You have to switch to the objects itself. And now be careful with optimization for this. So you really want to make sure your shards are very simple. The mesh is simple, and you kind of want to as well keep the materials not too complex, like not too many layers, and just keep very simple colors and materials. And this way you can scale your particle animation quite well. The next thing we want to look at, how do I control then these? Because it's, randomly selected by Emmiter. So I'm just getting these. I'm going to turn off the IPR for now. And you see that Emmiter is now randomly kind of popping these out because if you go to that emitter, it's just using these two groups to emit. And we know that these two groups are using custom objects of our shards. So it's all working in that hierarchy well. But I want to get better control of these materials. And one thing you can do, which is super powerful, and I'm so happy I discovered it, is to use xpChangegroup. Let me drink some water. So we have a xpChangegroup, and we're going to go to control modifiers, and we're going to go and bring it xpChangegroup. So that's the first one. And I'm going to say, hey, groups affected. That's the first important tab. I want to affect group 1, and I'm going to say group 1 and go to object tab will become new group, will become group 2. So I'll just drag group 2. So groups affected is group 1 will become group 2. So if I play now, it's all blue because the group 1 is changing to group 2, right? And now if I go to modifiers and bringing another xpChangegroup, so if it's going to xpChangegroup, and I have another one, I'll drag it below it. So I have a xpChangegroup number 2, and I'll do the opposite way. So I say, hey, take the particle group 2 and change it to new group to particle group 1 again. And now I change it to 1 again. So now I have two opposing xpChangegroups, but on that second one, I can go into fields and I can change it to spherical field. And look at this. Now you have a full control of your particles just by using fields compatible with Redshift, which I think is super powerful because then you can really start thinking how you can art direct your animations with Redshift and get really powerful kind of swarms, which I'm going to show you today. The one I always wanted to do. So what we can do, we can go into that yellow material now, and I'm going to change it a little. I just want to, change it to something basic like gray rocks and have like roughness quite high up. So just kind of have a boring gray rock. I'm also gonna go into that blue one, remove the diffuse and reflections, bring in emission. So I'm just gonna make this material emissive. I'm just gonna go into this kind of a purplish, pinkish. Yeah. And I have the emissive. I can bring in bloom just so we get a little bit extra kind of idea of what is happening there. I can really control the particles, you know, where they're going to be emissive and where they won't be emissive. But maybe I want to switch this around. I'm going to get rid of the spherical field and I'm going to bring in different field. I'm going to bring in shader field. So shader field is powerful because you can go into shaders and you can really tell, you know, different ways how you can affect this. I can bring in noise, and with this noise, what's going to happen, you're going to see it's going to start affecting. I can increase the contrast, and now I'm going to get random noise pattern in my particles. But I want to control this a little bit more. So what I can do, I can go into that shader field and increase the inner offset, just get more. And now what you really want to do is to go into the noise itself, back into the shader field noise itself, and you want to animate it with like a little bit of speed, just so you get that morph. So it's 1.1, and now this is fantastic. Now you have interactively changing particles from, you know, emissive to right. And now it's all about dialing the noise pattern just so it feels more natural. So you can really just go and increase the global scale there, and maybe, okay, so I've been playing with it for a while. So I've been tinkering, and global scale it's around, you know, 1300, and then contrast went to maximum. And if I go into that shader field and the remap, I'm just gonna 150 and inner offset to 50. Let's say this is going to be it, and it's kind of nice movement. So if you want to copy these numbers, then feel free to do so. And now it's kind of uniform, and you can see if I'm going to just turn on the IPR, it's starting to look interesting, but all of them are pointing the same way. So kind of Emmiter shoots them all as they are, and kind of shoots them the same direction and position as they are. So what we want to do, we're going to bring some randomness to it. But the first thing, we want to change really the direction. And the way I like to do it is using xpSplineFlow. So I can go into my orthographic, so middle mouse button, go to my top view, just take the Spline Pen and draw something like a spiral. I know you can do helix spline as well if you want to. I just want to like a custom, and then I want to go back from my orthographic top and go back to perspective and just click these single points, bring in my move tool by pressing E, and just kind of drag these. So we're going to have, you know, this one going top, then the bottom back to top, and just kind of leaving there. And now I'm going to go xpSplineFlow, and I will select this in the object tab. I will select the spline and drag it into there. So it will create these kind of rings where the particles should fit into, like in a circus, right? So I'm going to turn off the IPR, and now we see we have the movement as well as the beautiful kind of shaders changing, kind of starting to look nice in terms of movement. What we need to do in the spline flow, we're just gonna increase the along. The towards, we can just improve that movement. Just gonna follow the spline more closely, and if I can reduce the along, it will kind of follow it. Nice. So increase the towards, reduce the along, and now I get minimum spill. Right. And it's all about really, putting in your values and what you like it to do. But now I have beautiful kind of swarm happening. And what I want to do is, I don't want them to be all pointing same direction. And I want these particles to look like they are all different, right? Because right now you kind of see that we just using, 4 shards, We're just using very little amount of particles. So I want to give them variety. And the way you can do it, you just bring in another motion modifier, and it's a xpSpin. We're going to set it operation to rotate, and we're going to rotate them, I don't know, 45 on each axis. And we start it again. Just going to play this, let it play for a while. Now I look at it and I'm going to get like a random distribution rotation of these particles, which looks much more natural. I'm going to bring in some background, and I'm just going to drag this down a little and reduce my dome light. Hello. Yes. I'm going to reduce the intensity just so we can look at it, but also we have it in some kind of contained space so I get some reflections going. Right, so this is interesting. I can look at from the top as well, and this kind of form is starting to look really good. And if you think about it, it's going to be changing, from emissive to back to the rock. So it's going to be looking like they light up and then they, again, just turning to rock. So this is really cool way to control your particles. And let me just press play here. It's taking ages. You see, it's just gonna turn off and then turn on again. So it makes it seem more organic, more alive using shader field. So once you dial your numbers in and make it look as good as possible, there's a couple other things you can do to improve the kind of motion and the control of the whole animation. So one of the things you can do is to bring in flow field. So if you go to dynamics and just bring in flow field, you will change it. You can bring xpFlow field, and you see there's a newly appeared box that kind of affects the area of the flow field where it can affect the particles. And if I'm gonna turn this on now, you see the particles get mental, because the flow feels like really at crazy values right now. And we can reduce the cell size or increase the cell size and just kind of keep it simple. But I can, stop the animation happening just by increasing the strength. And now they don't follow the spline so closely. They more kind of swarming around in the flow field. So you can really animate this, and you can go even to basics, and you can just disable, and they will follow the spline. And then you can just enable it, and they will stop. And then you can just kind of disable again, and they will kind of try to come back to that spline movement. So that's really powerful technique, how to animate this even further. And this is all about you just going and putting in keyframes where you say in here, it's going to be on. So I'm just going to put keyframe for off, and then you're going to turn this on, and then put that keyframe in, and then you're going to put this on, and then you're going to put this again off. So if I'm going to play this now, they're going to go in, this is going to become on, and then off. And so they're kind of coming back to it. They're going to kind of disruption going, but then, right. So on, off, right. The other thing is you can do push apart effect. So if I go to modifiers again, and go to object in our modifier folder, we can go and xpPushApart. So we can go xpPushApart, and that's another cool effect, which is good to combine with field. So if you go to fields and bring in Spherical Field, right? And I'm just gonna put it here, just some kind of just so it's kind of in a way of our pathway. And then they go back, and I can push them apart by using push apart values and just create just kind of mega distance. So once they reach, they will kind of explode from there, and it's getting really wild. So I'm just going to turn on the flow field for now. I'm just going to get rid of it. Just going to show you the other modifiers just so we don't see that crazy movement there yet. So push apart will just kind of push it apart. So you want to do these values like 3 centimeters, depends on the scale you're working in. And now it's just going to push them apart. I'm just going to go back to the spherical field, bring it here. You see, and they get kind of dispersed here. So they're kind of following the spline, and now they get a little stretched out. So they get kind of this kind of force that make them spread out a little. The other thing you can do is to control the speed of the whole thing. So if you go to modifier and you go to control modifier, you can bring in xpSpeed. Or is it in a motion? So xpSpeed, it's in a motion modifiers. And again, you can put groups affected and bring in both groups. And now the speed will be affected by this. So you want to just go very slow, right? You want to just go 100. You're going to go 20, right? So they will go 20. They're going to follow the spline, and then you change it to -2. So this way, you know, you can have a speed value and variation as well. You can bring in the variation. So the particles have different kind of variations. So we're going to speed value of 50 and variation of 40. And this have kind of different speed values for these groups affected. Maybe 50 is still too much if I do 20. So it might be a good idea to clamp these, and you can really control this with clamps. And it's going to get better, you know, animations if you just clamp minimum speed and maximum speed. And then if you just animate, and they kind of slow down completely, just kind of follow that spline. And now it's just all about kind of animating it the way you like it, and really get this form you really want. I already liking this, what is happening here. You know, and you can bring in more groups, obviously, and just kind of create variety. You can bring glass, obviously, you increase your render time, but it is what it is. So yeah, if you wanna do something like this, let me know what you guys created and tag me in there, because this is really powerful technique and you get super good art direction with this. The last thing I wanted to mention is that xpTurbulence, that, you know, overall can just improve or totally destroy your animation. So you don't want to go crazy on strength. You just want to bring in some kind of random movement into your particle formation, just so kind of you get that randomness there. So if I'm going to spread it a lot, it's just going to all fall apart. So you're just going to find that exact. So number 8 could work well. You get more motion in there. It's more on swarmy, kind of organic looking, and it still, you know, produces good result. So that's really about you. Maybe you want to bring in just some kind of a increase the scale. And now if I look at it, this is already pretty good looking. Good. So I hope you like this tutorial, and I hope you enjoy this. I'm going to render this out just for you to see in the beginning of the video, and let me know how you enjoy this technique, and if you want to see more of these in the future using Xparticles and Redshift together.